Yo, 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 happy Saturday, fam. Hope everybody's doing well. It is another beautiful Saturday here in Western Colorado. It is time to stream some live Security Plus questions. I hope everybody's doing well out there. Do a little bit of housekeeping while we see who's going to join us for class today. Make sure I got my PBQ pulled up. How is everybody doing out there? Drop a hello in chat. Let me know how audio is, how is video. Still using the digital background as we improve the conditions of the Slay Security dungeon, as I like to call it. Today's beverage sponsor is coffee. Always awesome AM. Good to see you. Hello, hello. If this is your very first time joining us, welcome to Slay Security Plus. My name is Jesse J, aka The Cosmic Cowboy, and we are here for the next hour or so with the sole purpose of helping you pass your Security Plus certification exam by going over practice questions, strategy, PBQs, and a little mentorship along the way. We do this in a live community environment. Been doing it for about 2 years now. And so we hope that you drop in, get some value, pass your test, and then come back and help others. Let's kick things off by thanking our session sponsor and the sponsor of today's performance-based question, Threat Locker. Listen, do zero-day exploits and supply chain attacks keep you up at night? Well, worry no more and harden your cybersecurity with Threat Locker. Worldwide companies like UCF, the Houston Rockets, Orlando Magic, the University of Arkansas, and many, many more trust Threat Locker to keep their data moving and secure their business operations by doing so. Threat Locker takes a deny by default approach to cybersecurity and provides a full audit of every action, whether it is allowed or blocked, for your risk management and compliance. Onboarding and operation is fully supported by the US-based Cyber Hero support team. Get a free 30-day trial if you're interested and see how Threat Locker can help prevent ransomware and ensure compliance. Head on over to threatlocker.com for your 30-day trial. Thank you, Threat Locker, for supporting Slay Security Plus. We do appreciate you. The Rich 464 coming in hot. Finally able to catch the stream. Yes, sir. Well, it's good to have you. We are live. It is Saturday. Anulika, I'm probably slaughtering that. Ofojeku. Anulika Ofojeku. I'm probably slaughtering that, but hi and welcome to the party. Good to see you. Let's get into some studying. We like to start off all of our study sessions just like the actual test, and that is with a performance-based question. Remember that when you sit down for your exam, there is 90 questions total, up to 90 questions total, and the first 1 to 6 through those are going to be more of a practical approach. CompTIA calls those PBQs, or performance-based questions. And I always, good attempt, happy to be here. Well, at least I tried, right? Good to have you. PBQs start off the exam. And these are your practical, hands-on style questions. And then you'll move into more of the multiple choice type of questions. I always recommend that when you sit down for your performance-based question, that you click on different aspects and components of the question, to see what all you can interact with. As you can see, this one says, based on the scenario, use drop-down selectors to select the malware type that best fits the malicious actor's goal, attack vector, which is the path or direction, the delivery method and payload to defeat or exploit the victim's defenses or vulnerabilities. PBQs will start off with some kind of scenario. As a security analyst, you must investigate intrusions into your organization's extensive network and understand why they happen. Recently, a malicious actor infected 2 hosts, and you need to reconstruct the attack and its method so that the network and users can have protection against future malicious activity. You will need to think like the malicious actor and rebuild the attacks based on the defenses and vulnerabilities present in the exploited systems. We're going to read through, we're going to go through some of the options, and I want you to drop what you think is the best answer in chat. If it stays quiet in chat and nobody drops the answer, I'll move through with what I think is the best answer. All right, the victim's defenses. They have basic cybersecurity measures like firewalls and antivirus software. Okay. Victims' vulnerabilities. Using a corporate email to register for business discounts and personal purchases. Uh-oh. And the malicious actor's goal is to gain access to sensitive information like corporate data, intellectual property, and personal details. So it looks like we have a malware type, a vector, a delivery method, and a payload. Bloatware, fileless, logic bomb, Trojan, virus, or worm. We know the person likes to register for business discounts. Uses a corporate email to register for business discounts on personal purchases. We can choose from bloatware, fileless, a logic bomb, Trojan, virus, or worm. They have antivirus software and firewalls, so we can probably count out at least, let's say it's up to date, at least probably outside of 0 days or something like that. We could probably count out maybe worm. We don't think bloatware is the issue here. What do we think is the malware type? Worm, virus, Trojan, logic bomb, fileless. We don't see anything in the scenario that lets us know that there's a condition that needs to be met, which is how a logic bomb works. We can scratch that one off. I would think maybe a Trojan. Bloatware, always awesome AM goes with. I think of bloatware not so much as a malware type as much as it is just something that bloats your system and slows it down. So basically like Microsoft Windows and everything that it comes with. A malicious, what is our attack vector? How do we get there? Is it through a malicious jar or a JavaScript file? Is it through just a malicious file? Pretty generic. A malicious Microsoft Office file or a malicious XML file? What do we think? Well, we know that they register for business discounts and personal purchases. I'm going to lean towards the generic malicious file. Delivery method, application vulnerability, a network vulnerability, phishing or hoax email, social engineering, or a watering hole attack. Well, we know that they like to use the corporate email to register for business discounts on personal purchases. Maybe they get an email that comes back that looks like something, like some kind of discount. They click on the link. Maybe they're offered some kind of coupon or discount. So they get their discount, but along with it, in that Trojan, SS Boxer. Bloatware is like Lenovo Vantage on my ThinkPad. Exactly. Well, when I see email, I immediately think phishing or hoax email. Here's your free discount on golf clubs. Yep. And then what's the payload? A bot, crypto jacking or crypto miner, crypto ransomware, or a keylogger. Rich464 says watering hole where they search for the coupon. Maybe, that could be something to consider. We don't see that they're necessarily searching for coupons, right? We see that they use a corporate email. So you're rich464 at mywork.com to register for business discounts on personal purchases. Then maybe they get a reply email from the company that's a phishing email. They click on this supposed discount. So they're not necessarily searching for a coupon. And remember, a watering hole attack typically has to do with when we have a compromised web server or a compromised application that the threat actor knows a lot of people visit, and then the people visit it, a person visited, the victim visits the email. I'm sorry, not the email, but the website or the application, and then they are redirected, or they download a compromised, the server is compromised, and maybe it's hosting malware. What kind of payload are we looking at? A bot, crypto jacking, crypto ransomware, or a keylogger? Well, we know what they're looking to do is gain access to sensitive information like corporate data, intellectual property, and personal details. So their goal is not to get money. It's not to make money. It's to gain access. So it's going to be to find those credentials somehow. And what would we use in the payloads to get those credentials? What do we see here? Oops. A bot? Maybe a bot. The reason I think that it's not a bot is because we're trying to gain access to sensitive information, right? So in order to get that sensitive information, to gain access to that sensitive information, we're going to need credentials of some kind. Operation Tech Takeover, peace and blessings, family. Peace and blessings to you. Good to see you. Welcome back to the party. Tony Parrish, a long time Security Plus Slayer. Good to see you. Keylogger. Yes, I like keylogger. And why is that? Because a keylogger would allow the threat actor to find and sift through those keystrokes, find the credentials, and then maybe come back in, because we've got firewalls and antivirus software. But if you're using legit credentials, and let's say there's no multi-factor authentication set up on this, well, then they're going to be able to get in and get that information. So we think it's Trojan type. We're going to go with malicious file using a phishing or hoax email, and the payload is a keylogger. Let's move on to the next scenario here. The second scenario, VPNs updated with the latest patches, network security monitoring capabilities. Okay, VPNs updated with the latest patches. Okay. Victims' vulnerabilities, use of personal devices with miscellaneous unpatched software accessing a virtual event. Okay. And then the malicious actor's goal, loss of availability and financial gain by encrypting data. We can pretty much encrypting data. To me, that screams ransomware. So we'll just take that one off the table right away. What do we think team of the malware type? Victim's defenses, he uses a VPN, or they use a VPN updated with the latest patches, and network security monitoring capabilities. Their vulnerabilities is they use their own devices, so let's say a computer, with miscellaneous unpatched software accessing a virtual event. I lean towards Trojan on this one as well. Use of personal devices with miscellaneous unpatched software accessing a virtual event. Attacked vectors, we got a malicious JavaScript file, malicious Microsoft Office file, or a malicious XML file. Let's assume that the unpatched software they're using is Microsoft Office softwares. Here is where I see the watering hole technique definitely more applicable on this one, because they're accessing a virtual event where there's going to be more people going to it. So it's a known website, and maybe this threat actor has compromised the virtual event somehow. And so you go there, you download it's hosting malware. So this is an excellent example, again, of what a PBQ looks like, and I want you to get used to seeing these as you prepare for your exam. I like this. Let's go ahead and send it, see what we get, and move into the practice questions. Boom. 8 out of 8. I vaguely remember doing this one before, I think, in a previous class, but this one works. Let's go over the first scenario. Intellectual property theft by exploiting employee use of corporate emails for personal use. Using a corporate email address to register for business discounts for personal purchases can expose victims to the risk of phishing attacks and potential malware infections. Cyber criminals actively monitor websites that offer business discounts. They scrape email addresses or purchase lists of email addresses associated with the companies to build their target list. The attackers could use social engineering techniques to make an email seem urgent or enticing, encouraging the victim to take action. The phishing email contains an attachment that appears to have a relation to their business discounts the victim registered for. However, the attachment is malicious. It contains embedded scripts that exploit vulnerabilities in the system's software. Once the attacker gains control, they can steal sensitive information, log keystrokes, take screenshots, and potentially move laterally within the corporate network. Scenario number 2, loss of availability and financial gain by encrypting the data. The scenario indicates that the victim has some network protection in place. Out of the available malware types, using a Trojan with embedded crypto ransomware could accomplish the attacker's goals if the attacker can bypass network defenses. The victim relies heavily on Microsoft Office products, which according to CISA remains one of the top 2 targeted software product lines by malicious actors. With unpatched systems and embedded documents listed as vulnerabilities, The best attack vector and delivery system would be a watering hole in which the victims thinks they're registering for an upcoming popular event and received a confirmation email with malicious Microsoft Office files. Since the victim system permits embedded context execution, or OLE, this would enable execution of the embedded crypto ransomware in the most efficient manner possible. Okay. Angular. Hey, everyone. Just stopped to give my support to Jesse and the hashtag Simply Cyber Crew, hashtag SC. But I've got to go eat lunch. Go feed. Eat horde. Cool, team. We are blasting through these PBQs. We're almost done with this entire selection that CompTIA gives us. We'll have to start over again. All right, we have 21 questions. We won't get through all of them today, but let's get through a few. Let's go ahead and get this party started. Here we go. I'll read the question. This is very similar to what a CompTIA question is going to look like. It's going to give you a scenario and then going to ask you to make your best decision from what they give you. Remember to just take what CompTIA gives you in the question. There's going to be times, and I said this yesterday in yesterday's stream, there's going to be times when there's probably a better answer in the entire world of cybersecurity, but CompTIA is asking you to give the best answer from their body of knowledge and from what the question is giving you. So don't think too deeply on some of these. A consultancy recommends that a large construction company should encrypt its wireless network. Currently, the network is set to open and allows any device to connect to it, even employees' personal devices. What encryption product would help the company secure its wireless network? A, transport layer security, or TLS. B, a trusted platform module, or TPM. C, internet protocol security, or IPsec. Or D, Wi-Fi protected access. We've got a company and anybody can connect to the wireless. How do we protect our Wi-Fi? Right? Encrypt its wireless network. Well, just from looking over the answers that they give us, there's only one of these that really stands out to me that has anything to do with Wi-Fi, and that would be D, Wi-Fi protected access, or WPA. Remember the transport layer security, TLS, is how we encrypt Wi-Fi traffic data in transit over the net. Let me know what you think your best answer is. Remember, we've got a company that wants to secure its wireless access. Currently, it's open and anybody can connect to it. How do we keep people from connecting just to our wireless access points? Trusted platform module is typically completely different and is either a standalone system or a piece of hardware on the motherboard used to protect cryptographic keys. We have internet protocol security. SS Boxer says it's really easy to overthink these. I know the answer is D, but then I second guess. Right. And one of the best ways to not second guess is to know what the wrong answers are. Right. So we know that it's not TLS because that has to do with data in transit. Trusted Platform Module, or TPM, has nothing to do with Wi-Fi, which leaves us with only C and D, Internet Protocol Security and Wi-Fi Protected Access. We know that Wi-Fi Protected Access, think about you're at work and you want to connect to the wireless. You've got to either enter a set of credentials or some kind of key, right? Or maybe it's a shared key that you guys use. But we're using WPA in that case. So our correct answer, I believe, is D, Wi-Fi Protected Access. Correct. Wi-Fi protected access, particularly Wi-Fi WPA3, secures the traffic sent over a wireless network. Based on the scenario, the company needs to encrypt the wireless traffic. Remember that IPsec has to do with the VPN. Internet Protocol Security, or IPsec, secures the traffic sent between two endpoints over a public or untrusted transport network. IPsec is virtual private networking. The Trusted Platform Module chip holds cryptographic secrets and hardware state to help secure the encrypted hard drive. And TLS, Transport Layer Security, refers to securing application data such as web or email data sent over a public or untrusted network. What best describes text that is not encrypted? A, plain text, B, ciphertext, C, algorithm, or D, cryptanalysis? What do we think, class? Got somebody coming in hot with A, plain text, right? We're looking at text that is not encrypted. It has nothing that has encrypted it. V Brown, hello, welcome to the party. A, plain text. I tend to agree, so I'm going to, for now, put this. Let's talk about, again, one of the best ways that we can do this process of elimination is by understanding what the incorrect answers are. Everything Zella, good to see you. Also going with A. Yeah, I think we can go with A pretty well. Cryptanalysis is the study of analyzing different encryption methods and ciphertext. Algorithm is the method that we use to encrypt something. And then ciphertext is that text that once it's been encrypted. So plain text describes text that has no encryption applied to it yet. Correct. Plain text refers to data that is not encrypted. An attacker can easily intercept data that is in plain text form. The incorrect answers are ciphertext refers to data that went through the encryption algorithm. Creating ciphertext makes it less likely for third parties to intercept and read. So instead of saying everything Zella is awesome, maybe it would just be 451JK2 RPTCY3FK, right? We don't know what it says. An algorithm refers to an operation that transforms plain text into ciphertext, with cryptographic properties also called the cipher. There are symmetric, asymmetric, and hash cipher types of algorithms. And cryptanalysis is the art of cracking encoded information. Attackers use cryptanalysis to find information that others are attempting to hide. Moving on. A small company needs to ensure it protects the SQL data against theft while in use. What type of encryption would best fit this need? A, database level encryption. B, full disk encryption. C, using a cloud provider. Or D, using a security guard. A small company needs to ensure that it protects its SQL data against theft while in use. What type of encryption would best fit its needs? Database level encryption, full disk encryption or FDE, using a cloud provider, or C, using a security guard. Everything Zella says A. Hello, LinkedIn user. Welcome to the party. Also going with A. Let's first get rid of two answers that we know are incorrect. Well, using a security guard, while the security guard, I guess, could stand at the entrance of the data center or the office so that somebody can't get in, they're not really going to have anything to do with protecting digital assets, specifically a SQL database against theft. Chuck, what's up? Hello, I'm late. Holla at everyone. Hope your weekend is great so far. Chuck, I hope that your weekend is great so far. Using a cloud provider. Sure, we can use a cloud provider to store our SQL data, but how do we know, are we taking the right steps to make sure that it is properly encrypted? So we don't think that it's C. Just by using a cloud provider in and of itself isn't going to ensure that you're protecting the SQL data from being stolen while in use. And then we're left with full disk encryption and database level encryption. Well, we just need to encrypt the database. We're not trying to encrypt the entire disk. Correct. Database level or page level encryption and decryption occur when data transfers between disk and memory. Database level encryption would be the best option for the small company to protect its SQL or structured query language data. Full disk encryption refers to a product that encrypts the whole contents of a storage device, including metadata areas not normally accessible using ordinary operating system file folder explorer tools. Using a cloud provider presents the benefit of offloading the risk to another entity, but it does not necessarily prevent data theft. And then a security guard would not protect the company, would protect the company only from physical access that the threat actors would have. It would not prevent access digitally, which is exactly what we had covered. Moving on, a chief executive officer or CEO pushed back against the information technology department proposal to set up disk encryption on all devices. What best describes why the CEO should approve the proposal instead of pushing back against it? A, disk encryption protects stolen devices from data theft. B, disk encryption slows down a computer's performance. C, the cost of disk encryption is not worth incurring. Or D, the company does not have enough sensitive data. The question is asking us, right? I'm on the IT team and I say, boss, listen, we really should be setting up disk encryption on all of our devices. CEO says, no. The question is asking, well, why should the CEO approve of disk encryption instead of saying no? As you can see down here underneath my name, it says there's a little fire symbol. Because fire weather is in fact upon us. And right now, the slightest spark would set the entire area ablaze. Chuck says executives care about production and encryption would slow things down, which that is correct. But remember, what the question is asking us is what best describes why the CEO should approve instead of pushing back. Maybe the CEO wants to push back because he thinks that disk encryption slows down a computer's performance, which is marginally true. But we're asking, well, why should he approve it? The company does not have enough sensitive data. Well, that's probably not true. That's like saying I'm a small company, I'm not worth being hacked. The cost of disk encryption is not worth incurring. Again, maybe that's why the CEO would be against it, but the question is asking us, remember, we got to go with what is the question giving us? What is being asked? What best describes why the CEO should approve it instead of pushing back against it? So we know that it's not C or D. And then B, disk encryption slows down a computer's performance marginally and depending on how it's encrypted. But one thing it does do is it protects the stolen devices from data theft. So that is why the CEO should approve it and not disapprove it. And then that's something I didn't think about. Disk encryption will slow down performance and can have a negative impact. However, most modern disk encryption suites only lock down access to the data when the device is off. So there we go. Here we go. This one's going to get a little bit tougher. A large certificate issuing company lost its reputation due to poor business practices. Its higher signing authority revoked the ability to issue new certificates, and browsers now show it as invalid. What describes the position of the company that once had, but now has lost it? A, root certificate authority. B, a certificate signing request. C, a certificate authority. Or D, certificate revocation list. So there was a company that could issue certificates, but then because of best practices, the authority above it said you can no longer issue new certificates. What best describes the company that once was able to issue certificates, but now it cannot? Right? So we know that that company that once was able to issue them and now cannot because it had them revoked is on the certificate revocation list. And they had to issue a certificate signing request to be able to do that. The answer here is most likely C, a certificate authority. Correct. A certificate authority is a server that guarantees subject identities by issuing a signed digital certificate wrappers for their public keys. DigiCert, Certigo, GoDaddy has a certificate authority. The root trust model defines how users and different certificate authorities can trust one another. Each CA issues a certificate known as a root certificate. The root certificate is self-signed, meaning the certificate authority server signs a certificate issued to itself. A subject must complete a certificate signing request and submit it to the CA to get a certificate. And then the certificate or owner can revoke or suspend a certificate for many reasons. A certificate revocation list is a list of no longer valid certificates. If a company lost its, Chuck is asking, if a company lost its ability to issue certificates, wouldn't that mean it was root CA? Roots are the trusted source, right? The root of trust model defines how users and different CAs trust one another. Each certificate authority issues itself a certificate known as a root certificate. The root certificate is self-signed, meaning the certificate authority server signs a certificate issued to itself. So the root CA would have been signed by the certificate authority, right? It self-signed this certificate. Moving on, a security engineer investigates the impacts of a recent breach in which a threat actor was able to exfiltrate company data. What cryptographic solution serves as a countermeasure to mitigate the impact of hash table attacks by adding random value to each plain text input? A trusted platform module, B, SALT, C, Internet Protocol Security, or D, plain text? Again, so we read through the question, we take our first pass. Let's take our second pass. The security engineer investigates the impacts of a recent data breach. Okay. In which the threat actor was able to take company data. Exfiltrate means to take out. What cryptographic solution serves as a countermeasure that mitigates the impact of hash table attacks by adding a random value to each plain text input? Remember, so we see the word hash here, so we know that this data was properly hashed. That's when you take plain text and you use a hashing algorithm, and out of that gets a fixed length of characters. A hash table is a list of known hashes, right? Remember things like this. So when I was studying for my Security Plus, I would have a concept in my head, and that would have little roots that would come off everything that had to do with hashing. So you think of hashing like, okay, it's a one-way trip. Hashing is not encryption. It's a cryptographic solution, but it is not encryption. Remember that if something can be encrypted, it can also be decrypted. Hashing is a one-way trip to show integrity and to keep data from being decrypted, basically. And one of the ways that we can do that is not through Internet Protocol Security. Remember, that has to do with VPN connections. Well, plain text is pretty obviously incorrect. And then remember, the trusted platform module is that chip that stores cryptographic keys for an encrypted hard drive. So our answer here is SALT. SALT is the terminology that we use in cybersecurity for that little random value to a plain text input. Let's take a peek at that. DJ BSEC, what's going on, dog? Did you see your boy Shadur finally got picked up? Seeing if we can see what assault looks like. There's probably got to be a salt and peppers. If that works for you, that works. Hashing equals fingerprinting, not locking. You can't unfingerprint something. That's a good way to look at it. So here we have a password, farm 1990 M0O. The salt that we're going to prepend, so prepending means to put it at the beginning. So now we take this random string of information and we put it at the beginning. Then when we use the secured hashing algorithm 256, we get this string instead, right? Instead of just hashing the password, as they were saying here in the beginning of this article that, who is it? Alice and Bob share the same hash value, which tells me that they're using the same password, right? Because if you hash the same text, the same string of information, you will get the same hash. And that's how hash tables work. They're a list of known hashes. But if you add salt, so random bits of data either to the beginning or the end, it's going to look differently than if you just hash the password by itself. Confirm, boom. Good job, team. Well, DJ BSEC says only issue though is some hash values have been broken, so you can reverse a hash. Not really. I mean, I guess in a roundabout backwards way, I guess you're reversing the hash, but you can have hash collisions, but you can't necessarily decrypt a hash, right? Hashing isn't a way to encrypt. You're not encrypting data. You're just taking data and you're producing a fixed length of characters, which says this is what that data represents. It's not necessarily encrypting the data. So you could say that you've broken the hash and you know that the hash represents what the data was before the plain text going in, but it's not a method of encryption. Moving on, an indie game developer created a browser based on the Chromium project. The developer must ensure that anyone using the browser is safe from invalid certificates. What should the developer use to ensure that the browser blocks revoked certificates? A CRL or certificate revocation list. B, a CA or certificate authority. C, a CSR or a certificate signing request. Or D, PKI, public key infrastructure. An indie game developer created a browser based on the Chromium project, okay? The developer must ensure that anyone using the browser is safe from invalid certificates. What should the developer use to ensure that the browser blocks revoked certificates? DJB set coming in hot with a CRL or certificate revocation list. SS Boxer says the same thing. V Brown says the same thing. LinkedIn user says the same thing. Again, when you read these questions, some are going to be easier than others. I always recommend taking 1 to 3 passes over the question to get rid of the low-hanging fruit, right? Does anything just stand out? Like you could read this question and almost immediately know what the answer is. Search for it. Okay, there it is, right? Public key infrastructure encompasses everything that we're talking about, but does nothing necessarily. There's components of PKI that we're talking about here, but PKI in and of itself is not what we're using to ensure that a browser blocks revoked certificates. So that's not D. Certificate signing request is the process that a entity goes through when they want to have that certificate signed by a certificate authority. And then a certificate authority is the server or the issuing company, I guess the issuing server that wraps that certificate and digitally signs it saying it's good to go, your browser can trust it. We want to make sure that that browser has a certificate revocation list so that it does not accept invalid certificates. There we go. A certificate authority or owner can revoke or suspend certificate for many reasons. A certificate revocation list is no longer a valid certificate. LinkedIn user says knowing the acronyms are going to be key. Yeah, and the more you come to these study sessions, you're going to find that CompTIA doesn't necessarily test you from every single possible acronym in all of cybersecurity. They really want you to know the core acronyms, and so you're going to see a lot of repeat customers, and there's a handful of them that you should just get used to knowing. And so as we go over these, I try and always call them out. Hey, look, there's an acronym. Any acronym you see in the practice questions, probably acronyms that you're going to see on the real test. Why might a company want a longer key length? A, to improve the performance of the algorithm. B, to slow down the initial encryption. C, to increase the chances of ciphertext cracking. Or D, to decrease the chances of ciphertext cracking. Pretty quick question. We'll take our second pass. Why might a company want a longer key length? 56, 128, 256. Why would they want a longer key length? Well, do companies typically improve the performance of the algorithm? They probably do want to improve the performance of the algorithm, but using a longer key length would actually slow down the performance of the algorithm because it's longer, right? So that's not it. To slow down the initial encryption, companies typically don't want things to be slow. They want to move fast and be productive. Exactly. DJ BSEC at that company level. We want our employees to not be able to do their jobs. And then this is pretty straightforward. To increase the chances of ciphertext cracking, why on God's green earth would I want to make it harder, make it easier to crack? So that doesn't make sense. That leaves only one answer, and that is to decrease the chances of ciphertext cracking. I almost said crapping. Good job, class. We nailed that one. All right, moving on. A sole proprietorship construction company, which that's just CompTIA's way of you doing some word vomit. Remember, proprietorship just means owner. So it's a one owner construction company. Contacted an information technology consultant for technical support for a computer issue. After resolving the issue, the consultant suggested the company enable computer encryption. Encrypt the computer. I love generic things like that. Go play your Nintendo, son. But mom, it's a PS5. Whatever. That too. Why might the company want to enable encryption on its computer's hard drives? To slow down data removal from a stolen device. A. B. To prevent phishing. C. To prevent unauthorized access to data on a stolen device. Or D. To prevent theft. I think this is a new and updated question, and it is goofy. Oh gosh. After resolving that issue, the consultant said, man, if you call a consultant, you call DJ BSEC to come out and do some consulting work, and he says, yeah, and I want you to go ahead and encrypt your computer. The average person is not going to know what that means. You want to be very specific, right? We highly recommend page level encryption if you're using databases. We highly recommend that you encrypt your hard drives, not just encrypt the computer. The computer in it itself is the sum of the components, right? That includes the hard drive. What are you going to encrypt the fan too? You encrypt the on-off button? Anyways, slow down data removal from a stolen device. While encrypting it will slow it down dramatically. To prevent phishing, well, you can't prevent phishing. You can only prevent people from falling for phishing. You can do things to make your email solutions more resilient against phishing attacks, but you cannot prevent phishing, right? Threat actor is going to phish. To prevent theft, you can put security guards out. You can put the computers behind locked doors, a locked cabinet, cable lock it, whatever. That'll help prevent theft. Well, TJB says, what issue did the guy resolve that led him to say turn on HD encryption? Who knows? Maybe maybe the hard drive was just moving slowly. They needed to do a little compression. It doesn't say what it was. You're a consultant and you're going, while I was here to fix your power supply problem, after rebooting it, I noticed you've got a lot of proprietary information on your construction company's hard drives. While I was fixing your power supply, I noticed this. I would highly recommend you encrypt your company's hard drives. DJ BSEC, I feel like we're at a spa. You are at a spa, a learning spa. Helps keep me zen when I move. The hard drive is moving slow. Let's turn on encryption. Yeah, make it move even faster, right? To slow down data removal from a stolen device and to prevent unauthorized access to data on a stolen device. C sounds like the correct answer to me, and it is. Enabling hard drive encryption is a basic step to prevent data loss in the event of a stolen device. Without it, anyone can easily access the stolen device, regardless of needing a password. See, without it, anyone can easily access the stolen device. What they mean to say is, without hard drive encryption, anyone can easily access the data on the stolen device. You'll get the call back the next day. This thing is still slow. Well, it's because we encrypted it. Here's a solid state drive. Better yet, move to the cloud. A certificate authority has its issuing authority revoked and its certificates expired. How might those certificates still appear valid even though they should be on the certificate revocation list? A company was a root CA. The certificate authority blocked companies from adding it to the CRL. The company did not implement a CRL, or the CRL still requires updating. This is a good question. This happens. So a CA had its issuing authority revoked, and its certificates expired. Some of you may ask, which none of you are asking, Jesse, what are you doing after this Slay Security Plus? I'm going to the hardware store I might just go to Classic True Value. No, because my kids like the car carts at Home Depot. Sounds like I'm going to Home Depot. I need to get some information on planting grass. So if any of y'all out there are grass planting experts, hit me up. Give me some tips. Give me some hacks. All right, let's go through the answers that are incorrect. The certificate authority blocked companies from adding to the CRL, highly unlikely. The company was a root certificate authority. Again, unlikely. The root certificate authority is just when a certificate authority self-assigns its own certificate. The company did not implement a CRL. Call Snoop D-O-double-G. About the grass, he can help. Yeah, he can. Puff, puff, pass. What you know about that? The company did not implement a CRL. I don't know if it's up to the company to implement a CRL. And the CRL still requires updating. Remember, CRL stands for Certificate Revocation List. Everything Zealous saying D. We've got a conflicting answer with a C. The company did not implement a CRL. Correct me if I'm wrong, BSEC, but does that have to do more with the browsers implementing the CRL versus a company choosing not to implement one? I'm gonna roll with D so we can get through the questions. Maybe we'll get it wrong. Let's see. That's what I thought. Okay. When an entity revokes a certificate, they add it to the certificate revocation list. However, it requires a browser to check the list for the CA to provide the list. If this does not happen, an invalid certificate may not work. In other words, it still needed updating. Being a root CA does not prevent the revocation of a certificate. In the case of a subordinate CA, if a root authority revokes the CA's ability to issue certificates, everything from that intermediate CA and below suffers the same fate. And remember, a certificate authority, if it wishes to maintain its status, will not prevent the revocation of a certificate, and a company does not implement the CRL. A browser and certificate authority would implement the CR. Yeah, that's what I thought. That's what I said. That's how we learn, though. Is that Josie or Jose? Tell me in chat so I get it wrong. Is it like Josie, like the Steely Dan song? Or is it Jose? Either way, it's dope. Cool name. Is it like Jose? And don't beat yourself up. DJ BSEC, who has the CISSP, myself, who's got the Security Plus, and I work in the industry. I'm actually studying for my CISSP, hopefully next year. We get these questions wrong. That's part of learning. A security engineer noticed a high volume of images sent from the company's networks to a popular gaming social media platform. After reviewing the images, the security engineer saw that the images were seemingly benign, which means harmless. Why might these images still be a threat? A, they contain plain text. B, they contain ciphertext. C, they contain steganography. Or D, they contain phishing. What's one of your favorite things? Steganography? Josie says she wishes that she could be on vacation, BSEC. I think we all do. I know. I love showing people steganography too. Once you've seen it a couple times, it's like you've seen how the sausage is made. You've been to the circuits a few times, like, yeah, cool. But when you're first getting into cyber, or you're just you're not familiar with it, right? Steganography is this idea of hiding things, hiding something within something. Typically, what this has to do with is hiding, whether it's information, passwords, keys, whatever, within an image. C, contains steganography. I agree. job, team. Here we go. A security consultant is working with a client to improve security practices. How can this consultant describe cryptographic hashing so the client is more likely to accept recommendations? A, hashing speeds up the encryption process. B, hashing slows down the encryption process. C, hashing produces a fixed length string of bits from an input plain text that can be of any length. Hashing allows the same length of plain text to be different lengths of ciphertext. If you were partying with us earlier in today's study session, you know that I kind of briefly went over in my simpleton terms what hashing is. It is not a form of encrypting. It is a cryptographic process, but hashing in and of itself is not a form of encryption, nor does it have anything to do with the speed of the encryption process. So we can take A and B off the board. Anybody keeping up with the NFL draft, can you please tell me what round we're in? Are we done for the day? DJ BSAC saying C is the only one making sense here. You mean on the live stream? Yeah, you probably are the only one making sense. But we also know that it's not D, right? Everything Zella. Something that we want to drill home to you is that hashing will give the same, depending on the algorithm. So let's say I know it's a deprecated or no longer used algorithm, but we're going to say MD5, right? MD5 stands for Message Digest. Shedeur Sandler is not on the board. He was taken by the Browns, actually, in round 50. Everything Zella, hashing produces a fixed length string of bits, right? So if you're using, it's all right. Let's see, which one did I just do? Can I? Like going back and making myself finish this like intro try hack me stuff to make sure that I still remember some of this. Try hack me's up their game a little bit, which I enjoy. I thought specialized search engine, that's what it was. So here's a hash. All right. Now, don't worry about anything else on the page, but we see where it says SHA-1, SHA-56, and MD5. Those are the lengths of those hashes. So it wouldn't matter if I gave it 5 terabytes of information. If I use the SHA-256 hashing algorithm to produce a hash of that 5 terabytes, I'm still going to get this length of characters. It won't be these characters, but I'm still going to get this length. It's a fixed length of information, a fixed length of bits, regardless of how much plain text I give it, or regardless of the file size. If we do MD5, as you can see, they're significantly shorter. SHA-1, SHA-256. So the smallest, right? So no matter if I took 5 terabytes and I use the MD5 hashing algorithm, we're going to get the same length. We're going to get this every time. Beat that. So just to beat that, I guess that's kind of a dead horse. Zella says they read it too fast. All good. All right, back to my show. You guys have fun. What's your show, BSEC? A coffee chain hired a marketing firm to set up a website that allows signups. However, after running a test on the website, an error message in the browser stated that the connection is unsecure or insecure. I think it's unsecure. Insecure. Unsecure. I think it's unsecure. Your connection is unsecure. Insecure has to do with not feeling good about yourself. What framework should the marketing firm use to ensure its error messages do not show up? A, public key infrastructure, B, certificate authority, C, cryptanalysis, or D, typo squatting? Again, we read the question, we've got our pass through. SS Boxer is going with B. I tend to go with leaning towards B as well. Yes, they should implement typo squatting within their environment. Nope, wrong answer. Meh. Remember, cryptanalysis is this focus of trying to crack encryption. We want to implement a certificate authority. That is, I believe, correct. Oh no, PKI. That makes sense. I read that too fast. I got excited. Y'all that were saying B, you're not wrong in the sense that they want to have a certificate authority sign that, basically sign off on their website so that the browser recognizes that it says it is who it says it is, and they get that digital signature on their certificate. But what the framework they want to implement is public key infrastructure. I feel like we should have gotten that one right. I apologize for reading the answer a little bit too quickly. But yes, the correct one here is public key infrastructure, PKI. This refers to the entire framework of certificate authorities, digital certificates, software services, and other cryptographic components deployed to validate subject identities. This will be our final question for today's study session. A small development company just set up a web server and must ensure a secure customer connection. Regarding digital certificates, what is a file containing the information that a subject wants to use in their certificate, including its public key? A certificate authority, B, a certificate signing request or CSR, C, a certificate revocation list or CRL, or D, PKI or public key infrastructure. Now let's really think. We've been talking about PKI and certificate authorities. Let's think through what each of these are. Remember that PKI is the general framework that encompasses all of this. We're looking for something specific, not the general framework. So we know it's not PKI on this one. A small development company just set up a web server and must ensure secure customer connection. Regarding digital certificates, what is a file containing the information that the subject wants to use in the certificate, including its public key? All right, fam, let's think about this one. Remember, the certificate revocation list is a list that is in our browsers that has a list of certificates that are either no longer valid or have expired. This company is basically requesting, and I don't want to use that word because that would give away the answer, but for a teaching moment, this company wants to get a digital certificate signed off by a certificate authority. So I'm going to submit to the certificate authority a file that has its public key. It says who we are, what the domain name is, all this kind of stuff. This is in our certificate signing request. Let's see if I can get it to work. I have a small company that I came up with. Aegis Cyber Solutions. It's not really it's like a dream company. So I bought the LLC and the web space for the future. See, not secure. I've submitted my certificate request, but it has not been signed off yet. So that's what we're submitting, is the certificate signing request. We want it to be signed by the certificate authority so it doesn't end up in a certificate revocation list. And all of this is part of PKI or public key infrastructure. There we go. I hope that helps. The correct answer is a certificate revocation list. If you were tuning in with us and you got a bunch right or you got a bunch wrong, either way, it doesn't matter, because hopefully you're getting value and you're learning something either to help you prepare for the CompTIA Security Plus exam or just to help hone and sharpen your fundamental skills. I'd like to thank you all for taking time to be with us on this Saturday. My name is Jesse J. You guys are Slate Security Plus. Join us next week, same time, 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We'll continue to go through this set of questions, start off with some PBQs, and talk exam strategy. If you know somebody in your community that could get value from this, send them my way. You can find me on LinkedIn. You can find us on YouTube, Twitch, Discord, all of the fun places. I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful weekend.